My people, open your eyes and answer the call of the drum. Frelimo, Frelimo, Samora Machel, Samora Machel has come. Maputo, Maputo, home of the brave, our nation will soon be as one. Frelimo, Frelimo, Samora Machel, Samora Machel has won. Mozambique, a luta continua, continua. Mozambique, a luta continua, continua.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, Dr. Thabo Mbeki, former President of the Republic of South Africa, and our esteemed distinguished lecturer this afternoon. As I did say earlier, we are honored and delighted to have you with us. And once again, let's give him another big and warm round of applause. We're also honored to have His Excellency Dr. Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete, the Chancellor of the University of Dar es Salaam and the former President of the United Republic of Tanzania. Let's give him a warm round of applause. Your Excellency, allow me to also recognize the presence of Honorable Professor Adolf Mkenda, the Minister of Education, Science and Technology of the United Republic of Tanzania. With us, Your Excellency, is Mr. Harris Oshupeng, Charge d'Affaires, South Africa High Commission in Tanzania. Allow me to also recognize the presence of Ambassador Mwanaidi Maja, Chairperson of the University Council. Naomba tumpigie makofi. Thank you so much. Your Excellency, allow me to also recognize the presence of Professor William Anangisye, the Vice Chancellor of the University of Dar es Salaam. May I recognize the presence of the Deputy Vice Chancellors present, distinguished CEOs of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, Geita Gold Mine, Uongozi Institute, the Mwalimu Nyerere Foundation, and representatives of UNISA. I would also like to recognize the presence of the esteemed members of the university community, professors, students, invited guests, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Jamhuri ya Muungano wa Tanzania. Your Excellency, allow me to start, with your permission, by quoting Kwame Nkrumah, who once said, "When we meet for a meal under the moonlight, it is not because you do not have a meal at your houses where you could eat, or you cannot see the moonlight from your house yards, but because it's good to do so, to meet, to sit together as brothers." But I would also like to quote Mwalimu Nyerere, who once said, "Africa was once a collection of villages." I would also like to finish my quotation as we begin this town hall with the statement that was made again by Madiba, our very own, the former president of South Africa, who once said, "I dream of an Africa which is in peace with itself." As we meet this afternoon under the theme, "The State of the Continent, Reigniting the African Reconnaissance," Your Excellency, we are honored and delighted to have you under this town hall this afternoon. Without further ado, allow me to welcome, for the welcoming remarks, Professor William Razaro Anangisye, the Vice Chancellor, University of Dar es Salaam. His welcoming remarks will be followed by those of Mr. Kadari Singo, the CEO of Uongozi Institute. As he comes, let's give him a warm round of applause. Karibu sana.
Your Excellency Dr. Thabo Mbeki, former President of the Republic of South Africa, and our esteemed distinguished lecturer. Your Excellency Dr. Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete, the Chancellor of the University of Dar es Salaam, and the former President of the United Republic of Tanzania. Honorable Professor Adolf Mkenda, Minister for Education, Science and Technology. Ambassador Mwanaid Majal, Chairperson of the University of Dar es Salaam Council. Honorable Ministers, senior government officials, Your Excellencies, members of the diplomatic corps, Deputy Vice Chancellors, distinguished CEOs of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, Geita Gold Mine, Uongozi Institute, the Mwalimu Nyerere Foundation, and the representatives for UNISA, distinguished guests, professors and faculty members, students, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. It is my great honor and a distinct pleasure to welcome you all to this important and timely public lecture here in Nkrumah, the historic intellectual head of the University of Dar es Salaam. Allow me to begin by extending a very warm welcome to Your Excellency Dr. Thabo Mbeki. We are deeply grateful and immensely proud to host you today, not only as a celebrated African statesman and public intellectual, but also as one of our own. You continue to make us proud as an alumnus of this university, a place that holds dear the ideals you so eloquently champion, that is, African unity, intellectual freedom, and people-centered development. Ladies and gentlemen, today's public lecture, themed "The State of the Continent, Reigniting the African Renaissance," could not have come at a more critical moment. We are currently witnessing a surge of ideas, aspirations, and demands for deeper transformation across our continent, especially from the youth. It is commendable that this lecture deliberately includes contributions by young scholars and emerging thinkers. It reflects the spirit of African Renaissance, the essence of which is intergenerational, critical, and inclusive. The University of Dar es Salaam remains committed to its role as a vibrant site for constructive but critical thinking. We firmly believe that universities must be spaces where ideas flow freely, where truths are interrogated, and where the dreams of African people are nurtured in bold action. Only a few days ago, this campus hosted a major Codestria conference on academic freedom, reaffirming our shared duty to uphold the autonomy of African scholarship. I'm proud to add that this morning we hosted another lecture in the same spirit delivered by Her Excellency Dr. Netumbo Nandi Ndaitwa, President of the Republic of Namibia. Events like these reinforce this mission of reigniting the African Renaissance and illustrate the urgent need for more Pan-African engagements that break silos and foster solidarity across borders and disciplines on the continent. Your Excellency, we take this immense pride in your enduring relationship with this university. Let me assure you that our doors remain open to you at all times, whether to share your wisdom, guide our youth, or simply reflect among fellow scholars and comrades. To our guests, partners, students, and friends, thank you for joining us today. Your presence affirms the relevance of these conversations and your commitment to Africa's renewal. Asanteni sana na karibuni sana Chuo Kikuu cha Dar es Salaam.
Thank you very much, Professor Anangesia, the Vice Chancellor, University of Dar es Salaam, for those warm, welcoming remarks. Your Excellency, allow me now to invite Mr. Kadari Singo, the CEO of Uongozi Institute, for his remarks, to be followed by the setting of the tone by Dr. Mbuyiseni Ndlozi, the host of Power Talk South Africa. As the CEO, Kadari Singo, is here on the stage, let's give him a round of applause. Karibu-san.
Your Excellency, Dr. Thabo Mbeki, the former President of South Africa, Your Excellency, Dr. Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete, the Chancellor of the University of Dar es Salaam and former President of the United Republic of Tanzania, Honorable Professor Adolf Mkenda, Member of Parliament, Minister for Education, Science and Technology, distinguished guests, esteemed members of the university community, professors, students, and invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. And the last time I was here, I was just talking to the former President Kikwete and asking him about when he was here last. He says he was here between 1972 and 1975. It was amazing that he can even remember the room number that he stayed in from 1975. Now, my memories are different. Last time I was here was 1996. And my memory of this place is that I was escorted outside of this room by the police because we had a kunji. Those who remember what a kunji is. So those are my memories of this place. So today I'm standing here as the CEO of Uongozi Institute, and I'm so proud of this place. But it is indeed a great honor and profound privilege to be part of this significant event of the 15th Thabo Mbeki Africa Day Lecture, held as part of the 2025 Africa Day celebrations. We all know that since its inception, the Thabo Mbeki Foundation has emerged as a vital force in advancing the African Renaissance. We are honored to once again partner and collaborate with the foundation in this movement, which aims to place Africa on the path of sustainable and equitable growth. Ladies and gentlemen, Uongozi Institute has been working closely with the Thabo Mbeki Foundation on various initiatives, including the organization of African Leadership Forum, where the former President Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete is our patron. The forum serves the same purpose of creating a platform for meaningful dialogue and collaboration that promotes Africa's transformation. Your Excellency, we are privileged to continue working with you and to benefit from your visionary leadership. Your presence here today symbolizes the enduring friendship and cooperation between our institutions. Ladies and gentlemen, this year's theme, the state of continent, reigniting the African Renaissance, is both timely and significant. The concept of an African Renaissance is not new. It was notably articulated in the late 1990s by our Excellency President Thabo Mbeki, who to this day continues to live by and pursue this vital vision. His Excellency is a steadfast believer in true transformation, one that seeks to address Africa's historical challenges and revitalize the African continent. Today's lecture, therefore, is more than scholarly discussion. It is a reaffirmation of our shared commitment to Africa's advancement, and a call to reflect on what more we can do together to realize the Africa we want. Ladies and gentlemen, in concluding my remarks, allow me to once again thank you, Your Excellency, for continually reminding us of the spirit of Africa Renaissance and true collaboration. This very event exemplifies that spirit of partnership, as it is co-hosted by the institutions from across Africa. I believe that today we will benefit greatly from the general discussions and your wisdom. With these few words, I thank you all for your kind attention. Good afternoon once again.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kadari Singo, the CEO of Uongozi Institute, for your wonderful remarks. Excellency, allow me once again to really thank and appreciate all who put this town hall into a great success. These are none other but the government of Tanzania, Thabo Mbeki Foundation, UNISA, University of Dar es Salaam, Uongozi Institute, Mwalimu Nyerere Foundation, and Ashanti Gold Mine. Let's put our hands together for all those who put this event a great success. Asante, asante sana. As we are setting the tone, Excellencies, allow me to invite Dr. Mbuyiseni Ndlozi, who is the host of Power Talk on Power FM from the Republic of South Africa. His setting of the tone will now be followed by the presentation on the three themes, one on leadership and governance, the second one on socio-economic development. We shall then have presentations, a set of Q&A, and then His Excellency, the Excellencies Thabo Mbeki and Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete will come to Thabo Mbeki will give a reflection of anything that will transpire during the discussion that will emanate from the presentation. But for now, Mr. Dr. Mbuyiseni Ndlozi, the host of Power Talk, karibu sana to set the tone.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Salutations, President Thabo Mbeki, patron of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, former President and Chancellor of the University of Dar es Salaam, President Kikwete, Vice Chancellors of the University of Dar es Salaam, Minister of Education, the leadership of UNISA that is here, the chairperson of the Mwalimu Nyerere Foundation, Mzee Butiku, and Bramex. Bramex is the CEO of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation. He has requested me to indicate to all of us that President Mbeki is not delivering the lecture today. The lecture is taking place on Saturday. And today, President Mbeki is going to really interact with the rest of us, in particular the students of Dar es Salaam, which will be preceded obviously by your very insightful questions, comments, to which you want his reaction and that of President Kikwete. We gather here at the University of Dar es Salaam, the University of President Magufuli, Museveni, Kikwete, Mkapa, and many of Africa's finest sons and daughters in science, literature, and the arts. A university whose opening was presided directly by Mwalimu himself in the 1970s. At this moment, he was at pains to mark out the post-colonial academic project. Here in his speech at the opening of the university in August 21 of 1970, Mwalimu canvassed the relevance of Dar es Salaam, the relevance of Dar es Salaam University to African reality and needs, warning against the epistemic culture of mimicry. the academic disease of seeking to emulate Western academic institutions. Mwalimu was clear that this mimicry has nothing, quite frankly, to do with science itself. Meaning one could not say, I'm not going to study artificial intelligence because it was invented in the West. This is contrary to another emphasis he put on reality. In 1966, he argued right here in this campus, speaking to students like we are doing today, that the university must help the nation to face reality. And in our reality, the need for science and scientific training is desperate. Many people today, particularly those who speak about decolonizing the university, miss this point. Often they think decolonization means rejecting science because it is Western. Mwalimu would view such a proposition as dangerous as it is delusional. What is the reality? Industrial development and innovation has entered an interesting stage of machine learning, generative AI, nanotechnology, cyber, physical systems, Internet of Things, and cloud computing in what is now known as the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Meaning these developments are at an industrial scale and defining industrial production. On the 5th of February this year, CNBC International Podcast published a podcast by Professor Max Tegmark, a Swedish-American physicist at MIT, who argued that AI is posing an existential threat to humanity. He speaks of the supersonic speed with which machines are close to attaining autonomous, intelligent capabilities, and soon humans will lose control over them. This loss of control means these intelligent systems can take decisions on their own that we often cannot immediately comprehend and that may be harmful to populations. He calls for complete deregulation, in fact, regulation at global scale, and complete ban on companies developing these systems on their own. In some scientific tackles, you will know, scientists have argued that the threat posed by artificial intelligence is worse than that was posed by the hydrogen and atomic bombs, because these bombs still need a human intervention. Self-generating machines with autonomous intelligent capabilities far surpass human understanding and are reaching self-automation and self-control. What Mwalimu will never agree with is an academic project that would claim oblivion or seek to go on with life as if such developments do not affect us or they have not happened. For such an academic project would not be in keeping with his call that universities must be, and I quote, committed to the pursuit of truth. Mwalimu calls for the fast-tracking of the training in science because in his mind, science is a legitimate instrument of production of reliable knowledge upon which human development solutions and innovations can be based. It is therefore not Western in and of itself. In fact, its entire evolution up to the modern standard model principle physics, it is global, with some key developmental stages historically taking place in the continent of Africa by Africans. Mwalimu would insist that we are part of the world and must never accept to be sent to the villages to live the rest of our desperate lives in primitive conditions, only to be admired by tourists for how traditional we have been and remained despite supersonic high-tech human civilizations. Part of nature and the natural human kingdom. Mwalimu knew that the universality of science cannot be domesticated by racism, which drove the colonial project. Colonization was driven by a lie, which got sustained through genocide, massacres, plunder, and systemic socio-economic zombification of Africans, the cultural domification of the continent. The Liberation Project was therefore an equally violent confrontation in defense of Africa against a lie. No one must live in the dictates of a lie that we are not part of the world, that we are not part of the scientific endeavor. We must unapologetically be part of the universal scientific experience and do so on the terms that we set ourselves. Mwalimu's challenge to the post-colonial university is that the agenda that must employ science should not mimic the West, meaning it must be based on solving problems facing the continent and its people. And in that year, he was emphasizing agriculture. A more central proposition he put in that very year relates to the question of self-reliance, also articulated elsewhere in his works on education as self-reliance. His central struggle, which remains our struggle today, is that Africa, or is often Africa that thinks for itself, that is able to stand as an equal partner amongst the people of the world. That it must be part of the world is non-negotiable. An Africa capable of leading its own development, governing itself in total peace and stability. Our duty in gathering tonight is to rise to Mwalimu's challenge, which is the central tenet of African Renaissance, of the African Renaissance project. To renew Africa, first and foremost, is to accept the inevitable, eternal, and urgent truth. No one is coming to save this continent. Africans, you are on your own. We are on our own. Self-reliance is the ability to depend on ourselves for the needs like food, shelter, and economic stability without external aid. African Renaissance means Africans taking control of their resources, decisions, and development. At this moment, Africa is totally reliant for this sustenance on other peoples of the world. Meaning for at least the past 50 years, in some post-colonial dispensations, we are speaking about much more. We have volunteered ourselves, our destiny, our future to others in the world, which is the greatest form of self-damification in the whole world. After 50 years of independence, here in Tanzania, it has been over 60 years. What justification do we still have to blame the West and former colonizers for our underdevelopment? How come we find it easy to steal from each other, even money meant for medication, for the sickly, to arrest and imprison each other over ideas, kill each other over ethnic differences? Yet we do not have the same determination to solve the economic problems that face us. How come we don't mobilize the West in the economic distribution of self-hate and self-division amongst each other? And yet when it comes to the positive development and the resolution of poverty, inequality, industrialization, our leaders have the audacity to say it is the West that is holding their hands and feet from developing our communities. Yet we do not have the same determination as well for a self-reliant Africa in mining, manufacturing, communication, digital technologies, infrastructure, healthcare, and education. We know that Africa relies on imports for many consumer goods, with only 20% of food imports coming from other countries. For manufactured goods, the continent produces just 2%, suggesting low share of locally consumed products are made in Africa. Less than 2% of our medicines do not come from the continent. meaning close to 90% of our pharmaceutical products come from outside of the continent. 80% of antiretrovirals being imported mostly from Europe, India, and China. This means we cannot heal ourselves. We cannot clothe ourselves. We cannot even drive ourselves. All the cars that we used coming here are not produced in the continent. We have wars in at least each of the regions of the continent. Yet well over 90% of those guns and ammunitions don't come from this continent. And out of the destruction of our lives is the profiteering of the international military-industrial complex based elsewhere. We don't even have the means to kill ourselves. But killing we are doing. President Mbeki has been at pains to also explain to us that even in thieving, the majority of the thieving in the population is not local thieves here in Africa. Through illicit financial outflows, you are even outdone in thieving by the Western thieves in Europe as well as North America. I'm not saying that we must compete in criminality. Our call here, therefore, today is a simple one. The genesis of our freedom is we must be responsible for ourselves. This is the true meaning of liberation. This is the true meaning of freedom. The capacity to be responsible for ourselves. So why are we here today? We are here to start a rebellion. We are here to repeat after Mwalimu that education is not a way of escaping poverty. It is not a way of escaping the country's poverty. It is a way of fighting against poverty. We are here to remind Tanzania of Mwalimu's development as rebellion. Your education here in these lecture halls must lead you to rebel against the spirit of mimicry of the West, the spirit of plunder and of war. The intellectual academic project must employ the scientific tools, not in pursuit of Western questions and problems, but it must employ scientific tools to answer the questions of Tanzania, of Zambia, of Uganda, of the DRC, and the rest of the diaspora. We must fight against every obstacle, regardless of who puts that obstacle. Even if that obstacle is put by ourselves, each and every obstacle that denies us to be responsible for our freedom, to be responsible for our destiny, to account for ourselves, it must be crushed once and for all. This is the quintessential call for Africa's renewal. It is a revival of some pride. You must refuse to live in the conditions in which you cannot be proud of yourself. The people who steal in this continent, the people who steal the resources of this continent, the people who self-enrich out of government money are low self-esteem driven, mimic driven zombies who are looking out to become part of the Western culture of consumerism. If we are going to be proud of this continent, first things first, I want to belong to a street that I love. I want to belong to a college that I can be proud of. That when I'm in Europe and they try to look down on me, I don't think twice because I've got a home to go to, and that home is a home to be proud of. The radical need to live in peace, stability, and prosperity. The refusal to be led by anyone who violates this eternal idea that we must be self-reliant. That's the call today. That we must create the conditions to rely on ourselves, to clothe ourselves, to feed ourselves, to transport and heal and educate ourselves. Such a spirit in this continent must be brave to embrace the difficult work of African unity. Over the last few decades, our continent has fractured. And the best example is the Trump war, in which the African continent couldn't constitute an agenda in a united form to say, not in our name. You're not going to bully anyone from Cape to Cairo, regardless of whether you are running the most powerful country and military in the world. We are going to die together because we have lived together, we were oppressed together, we are hated together. You come to us as a united force, as Africans in the world. We must refuse all efforts to turn Africa against each other. Anybody that turns an African against each other is not part of us. Anyone who wants to do business with us must respect this objective, that we want to be self-reliant. If you want to get our gold, whether you are China, India, Brazil, the United States, or Europe, you must respect this important principle that we want to be self-reliant. So if you want to take our gold, if you want an exchange of our gold, you must know that you will have to come with a trade deal that allows us to attain self-reliance in the entire gold chain, the chain in the gold trade. If you want our rare earth minerals, you must give us a trade deal that allows us to empower local manufacturing of digital technologies, including building high-speed internet in universities and public facilities. A university must be a place of the fastest internet on earth, everywhere, anytime. There must be internet everywhere. In the bedroom, in the dormitories, in the canteen, because learning is like a spirit. It can awake anytime. And when it awakes and that fire comes, you must be able to tap into the universal portal of knowledge and science. Here, in this hall, we must reignite the spirit of commitment to this continent. We must live here knowing that there is no European President Mbeki, there is no American, there is no China that will ever liberate this continent. They cannot do it. They are not Africans. How could they know what Africans need? It is Africans who must set the agenda, live to the best standards of that agenda in as powerful a way that is so self-sacrificial. Only Africans can define that agenda, not China, not Europe, not India. You here, right now, are the Africa that we need. You here, right now, are the person that we are here to reignite. You here, right now, must be responsible for the renewal of this continent. You here, right now, must make sure that Tanzania is a place to be proud of. You here, right now, are responsible for reigniting African Renaissance. Forward with self-reliance, forward with Africa's renewal. Asante sana.
I truly do not think if there's anything more to say after such a powerful tone that has been said. Let's give him another big round of applause. As we reignite the African Renaissance, Your Excellency, in this Nkrumah Hall, allow me once again to reflect just by a quotation, once again by Kwame Nkrumah, who said, "I'm not an African because I was born in Africa, but because Africa was born in me." And this is what we should be is really centered along the tone that has just been set. Your Excellency, allow me now to bring to the stage Ambassador Azizi Mlima from Uongozi Institute, who is coming to talk to us on leadership and governance. Ambassador Aziz Mlima will be followed by Mr. Simon Shayo, a UDSM University of Dar es Salaam alumni, who will be speaking on socio-economic development. As he comes, let's give him a round of applause. Karibu sana.
It's always difficult to speak after a passionate speaker like my brother here, Dr. Ndlozi. Excellency President Thabo Mbeki, the patron of Thabo Mbeki Foundation and former President of Republic of South Africa, former President Jakaya Kikwete, Chancellor of University of Dar es Salaam and former President of United Republic of Tanzania, Professor Adolf Mkenda, Minister of Science and Technology, Professor William Manangisye, Vice Chancellor of University of Dar es Salaam, Ambassador Monaidi Mahajal, the Chairperson of the Council of the University of Dar es Salaam. Allow me to stand on the established protocol on the interest of time. Today I'm going to talk about leadership and governance, but my focus will be on the economic sphere. Today we reflect on the intersection between leadership and governance and why both are very important for navigating today's global and national challenges. We know they are very crucial for spearheading the African Renaissance. How do we define leadership and governance? We all know in this room, but just to highlight, leadership is about vision, influence, and direction, a strategic direction, while governance is the system and process of decision-making and accountability. Mwalimu Nyerere, our founding father of this nation, provided the philosophical guidance of economic development of any nation. And he pointed out four major qualities or four major items which we really need to have in order to develop. And the first one was the skilled manpower. The second one is land. The third one is a good political climate. And visionary leadership and good governance. All this, if you try to work at them together, the country will definitely develop without having so much other resource, any other form of resources. But the most important thing is that the first two, land and manpower, provide for means of production and to drive the development agenda. Good leadership drives the purpose and change, while governance ensures the rules, checks and balances, but also the continuity. At the same time, governance allows for accountability, transparency, and also all the important aspects of governance. So, what Mwalimu did, he knew that both leadership and good governance works hand in hand in order to achieve economic development or economic progress of any society. But we know what the priorities were during the time of Mwalimu. We didn't achieve much of economic progress because he had to build a nation first. And he succeeded very much so about that ambition. The second goal of Mwalimu during those days were to build the Pan-Africanism spirit. It was the fight against colonialism all over Africa, but mostly in the southern part of Africa. And we can say until the time when Mwalimu retired from the office, he succeeded on that. but the world, as we know, it was divided between East and West, and in order to navigate, we were actually under non-aligned movement, and Mwalimu managed to play around the two and be able to support the freedom struggle, independence struggle in the southern part of Africa, but also managed to build a nation which, by the time we got independence in 1961, it was just 120 tribes in a geographical area called Tanganyika. And later he managed to unite our two countries, Tanganyika and Zanzibar, to form the United Republic of Tanzania. And together they supported all those kind of initiatives. And if you compare the time Mwalimu came to the office until the time when he left the office, there was a lot of economic development. But this underlines the importance of effective leadership. Mwalimu achieved those goals. But what are the importance of effective leadership? Is to set national development agenda, which if we refer to Mwalimu and many other founding fathers, they managed to do that, to build trusts in public institutions, but also to manage crisis and transition while navigating the global crises and issue at that time when you had two global, you have the global East and global West, but also you had the developing countries like our nations in sub-Saharan Africa. But Mwalimu and other leaders of their generation managed to bring about that kind of leadership. But the other aspect which is very important is the good governance. And the good governance is about participation, the rule of law, transparency, responsiveness, conscious orientation, equity and inclusiveness, but also effectiveness and efficiency. And more importantly is the issue of accountability. All that said, they are not without challenges. And most of the leadership challenges of our time is the issue of turnover without institutional reforms, the issue of corruption, and weak accountability, but also the issue of limited participation, and also policy inconsistency and short-termism. And this is the most important aspect when it comes to the African Development Challenge, because we have this elective cycle whereby the office bearers usually just look at their political cycle, 5 years, maybe 10 years in office, and there is no continuity which allow to give some consistency in the economic development or in economic space. But also there is a disconnect between academic research and policy making. And these are the challenges which we need to address. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the important role played by both policymakers and academia in national development agenda cannot be overemphasized. Policymakers have a very specific role to provide strategic direction grounded in evidence, invest in leadership development and ethical institutions, but also to align policy with long-term governance goal. Fortunately, in our countries, we have this, like we had Vision 2025, which is ending now, but we are now working on the Vision 2050. But these are supposed to be long-term goals, but also each regime which comes to the office, or each office, should have consistency in applying those development goals. Otherwise, you may just find that you are dealing with what are the key priority at that particular time, and that can only be key political priority, but they're not economic. And that can make stagnation in our development agenda. But also to foster public and to foster public trust and civic engagement. While the role of academia is to generate idea-driven insight and crucial analysis, but also doing research, serious research, not just consultants and things like that, but also to train future leaders with ethical and strategic mindset. We also need, the academia need also to serve as a watchdog and conscious of the society. The academia also needs to promote policy innovation through research and innovation. However, it is important to have a synergy between leadership and governance. A strong leadership improves governance framework, but also good governance sustains effective leadership beyond individuals. A strategic alliance between academia and policymakers ensure that they are evidence-based and sustainable, but also drive the development agenda. Before I conclude my presentation, I would like to share with you a Malaysian experience. This is out of Africa, but it covered during the period of Dr. Mahathir Mohamad. He was the Prime Minister of Malaysia, 1981 to 2003. Malaysia case under Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, he wanted to establish the industry, heavy industry in Malaysia, and he launched what is known as Heavy Industry Corporation of Malaysia, Berhad, which was known as HICOM. And Dr. Mahathir, he came into office, if you remember, it was time when the structure adjustment program of the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund were at the peak. And what he did was not to, okay, let me just explain a bit on this because otherwise it will just be hanging. Most countries in Africa got independence in 1960. But between 1960 up until 1973, we used gold standard. And the gold standard was that Africa used to have about 40% of gold reserve. And in gold standard, we could actually use our gold to trade with the rest of the world, the international trade. And it was difficult to control Africans when you use the gold standard. But then, after the oil crisis of 1973, they switched from gold standard to dollar. And I'm sorry to say in this part, and I'm a diplomat, I'm not supposed to say this, but since this is an academic institution, I think we should discuss this openly. The gold standard moving to dollar, you could actually now sell all your products, the diamonds, the gold, the platinum, the oil, and everything you produce by a mere piece of paper. And that was not just US dollar, it was all the convertible currency during those days. So what happened since 1973 up until 1980s, most of the African countries, which initially could probably export a ton of coffee and get 2 tractors, now they have to export maybe 5 containers of coffee to buy just 2 tractors. And that was another level of economic dependence which was created during those days. And what happened in the 1980s, most of the African countries were not able to pay their debts. So the structure adjustment program came in. And that added another layer of exploitation and dependency. So what Dr. Mahathir did was not to go into that debt trap, to start, follow the prescription of the World Bank and International Monetary Fund. So what he did was to train, and this is what he said himself. He came to the office as a medical doctor. And as a medical doctor, when you have a patient coming into the emergency room, what you need to do is to stop the bleeding. And stop the bleeding was to stop the indebtedness. And then what he did, he trained the best talented Malaysian students and he sent them to all best universities in the world. And he initiated the industry, as I said in his HICOM, the initiative. He brought in industry, Daihatsu, with MOU with the Japanese to produce cars which were supposed to be used within Malaysia as an automobile industry. And the car industry supports more than 100 other industries. And by doing so, all those graduates who went, all those best students who went to other universities, top university in the world, when they came back, when they went back to Malaysia, they were now expert in their areas, and then the mushrooming of the industries in Malaysia took place. And the same can be said to South Korea under General Park, but I can see the moderator here is coming to remind me that I should conclude, and I have to do so. But to finalize or to conclude, economic development needs the following characteristics, the following pillars. You should have land, you should have skilled labor, you should have capital, you should have infrastructure development, but also you should have friendly policies for investment and industrial development. And now we're talking about the fourth industrial development. So the university platforms like this one need to train the best brains in the area of artificial intelligence, coding, and so forth, so that we are not going to do the catch-up. We have to be part of the community which drive the innovation and development in the world. Just like the M-Pesa application was found here in Africa, so we can actually do it. And the final pillar is to take the opportunity of comparative advantage of the continent. This is the only continent which you can see it is like at the center, and we have all the resources, we have almost everything, we have the brains, but if we tap into the brains and we tap into the good leadership and good governance, we'll definitely be able to succeed, just like the Southeast Asian countries did in a span of 20 years to 30 years, most of them. So let me conclude by saying that let us commit to ethical, strategic, and inclusive leadership and governance. More importantly, African Renaissance, just like the East Asian success stories, require exchange of ideas, more competition, stronger creativity, and above all, the opportunity for all those with talent to build up new businesses can take on the world market. Utajiri sio dhambi. Mwalimu once said, it can be done, play your part. I thank you for listening.
It can be done, play your part. Let us give Ambassador Azizi Mlima another round of applause for that fantastic presentation on leadership and governance. Your Excellency, allow me now to bring onto the stage Mr. Simon Shayo, former UDSM alumni, as he comes to ponder on socio-economic development. As he comes, let's give him a round of applause. This will be followed by Q&A from the remaining of the speakers. Karibu sana.
That should be fine. Your Excellency Thabo Mbeki, the former President of South Africa and Chancellor of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, Your Excellency Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete, the former President of the United Republic of Tanzania, and the Chancellor of the University of Dar es Salaam, and many other leadership roles. Honorable Professor Mkenda, the Minister for Science and Education, distinguished professors, members of the diplomatic corps, and all present here tonight, allow me to walk on the protocol that has been set. Indeed, I'm very humbled to be here. I know when you start outlining the alumni of the University of Dar es Salaam, I probably will come on the bottom of the list, knowing that those of you who are seated here came to this campus long, long before those of us who are talking here did so. So I'm speaking here with a lot of humility. And having heard from the professors and so eloquent speakers, what else do I need to say? So Your Excellency Thabo Mbeki, allow me to walk on the, Africa has set a tone since long ago, but we did ascertain and affirm that tone in the 2015 Agenda 2063. And questions that should be asked now, 10 years inside the Agenda 63, is are we heading where we wanted to head with Agenda 2063?
the space the topic I've been asked to speak about is just one of the many aspirations, the 7 aspirations that the African people had when we were setting Agenda 2063. So I will probably just ask in terms of questions, are we heading where we want to head? And you said it, Doc, and I don't want to repeat what you said. Mine will be nothing. So until when? So everything I say will be until when? Until when we cease to see the young boys and girls, the sons and daughters of Africa, drowning in the waters of the Suez and other waters, trying to run from their own motherland. Only then will we be able to say Africa has attained socioeconomic development. Until the time when we will cease to see our brothers and sisters being buried in the debris of falling grounds because of unsafe mining conditions, only then will we be able to say Africa has attained socioeconomic development. Until when we will start seeing mothers delivering safely and no mother wasting or losing life because of the journey of bringing a life to earth, only then can we say Africa has attained development. Until the time when we will cease to see money flowing from the coffers of our nations to foreign countries in Europe and America, in the individual accounts of our leaders that we have entrusted to those resources, only then can we confidently say that Africa has attained the socioeconomic development it wanted or dreamt to attain. Until the time we'll stop seeing blood flowing into the rivers of the DRC, Southern Sudan, the Biafra of Nigeria, and many other African countries, only then will we be able to say Africa is peaceful, and so this is a continent that can together achieve shared prosperity, develop together. We cannot talk of socioeconomic development as if it is something that you can attain in the sky. Until the time we'll stop seeing those who are talking about the freedom of speech being forced to run from their own countries or have to go to jail for that, only then can Africa claim to have attained socioeconomic and sustainable development. Until the time that every young African who has worked so hard, finished their secondary school or whatever level of school that will bring them to the highest level of education, be able to attain that highest level of education without necessarily having to live and starve long hours without a meal just because they are studying, only then can we say that Africa has attained the development it wanted to attain. So I'm talking here about having, we are proud that we already have almost 50-50 in terms of admission, Prof, if I'm not mistaken. But how many, even if it is 1%, of those are forced to drop because they cannot pay for their education to the final year, while myself and few that can afford 4x4s are driving those because our roads are not good enough. So until then, can we say Africa has attained the journey it wants to attain, the journey of sustainable development? So I'm challenging myself, younger people than me here, other Africans, to try and reignite the African Renaissance by living the dreams of our forefathers, but the dreams of our living leaders who are so much inspiring and yet watching Africa dragging its feet with all the potential that we have. So, Your Excellency, tonight we'll want to hear the conversations about what is it that is holding Africa back. And I'm not going to say what is it because alone I can't. So together, let's ask ourselves, until when will Africa continue to sit on itself, sit on its potential, and watch the world prospering while Africa is becoming a sorry story? Thank you for listening.
Asante Sana, thank you very much. Mr. Simon Shayo, University of Dar es Salaam alumni, for your dissection on the socio-economic development as we are looking onto the Africa Day lecture, Town Hall with President Thabo Mbeki. Totally appreciated. I would now like Your Excellency to invite onto the stage none other but Dr. Hezron Makundi from the University of Dar es Salaam to come and guide us onto the question and answer session, which again will pose a moment of reflection by President Thabo Mbeki later on. Dr. Hezron, karibu sana.
Thank you, Austin. Your Excellency, President Thabo Mbeki, kindly receive the humble and sincere apology from our team of organizers for this town hall for not starting on time. We are honored to have you here to engage in this dialogue about the renaissance of our motherland, the African continent. So the discussion will be in two parts. The first part will be to finalize the talks from the prepared speakers, but this time rather shorter, and then the other part will be opening to the audience. So we will start with Professor Anthony van Nieuwkerk, if I got it right, from the University of South Africa, UNISA. He's going to provoke the discussion on the sub-theme on security and Pan-African unity. You can come to the podium. Let's clap for Professor Anthony, and you have 5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Greetings to His Excellencies, President Mbeki and President Kikwete, and all honored guests and academic leaders and my colleagues and all the students in the hall. Thanks. And thanks for the 5 minutes. I was told 3, but now it's gone up to 5. Let's see how I do. I want to talk about peace and security, and I want to ask a question which my students ask me, which I can't answer. And then I thought, maybe if I ask President Mbeki and President Kikwete, they might be able to give us answers, because they are experienced in this area of peace and security. My question goes like this. The Pan-African vision of the African Union is inspiring. It talks of an integrated, prosperous, and peaceful Africa, driven by its own citizens, representing a dynamic force in the international arena. It's the AU's vision statement, Agenda 2063. On peace and security, the AU undertakes to promote dialogue-centered conflict prevention and resolution in such a manner that by 2020, says the vision, the guns would have fallen silent. In addition, the AU undertakes to promote a culture of peace and tolerance in Africa's children and youth through peace education. The AU also speaks of an Africa with a strong cultural identity, common heritage, shared values and ethics. The question arises, how far have we come with realizing these aspirations? On peace and security, is the African Peace and Security Architecture, APSA, fully functional? Does it inspire peace in Sudan, in South Sudan, the Sahel, the Horn, the Great Lakes region? Does it deter crime, corruption, and exploitation. On a cultural renaissance, have we inculcated the spirit of Pan-Africanism to ensure that the creative arts contribute to Africa's transformation? Have we restored and preserved Africa's cultural heritage and its languages? President Mbeki, President Kikwete, how would you assess our progress? And if you think we are found wanting, then I want to ask, how do we reignite the spirit of peacemaking and peacekeeping in Africa? Where the flame has been doused, how do we reignite it? And then finally, on agency, who must do that? Our visionary leaders, our academics and scholars, our civil society, our citizens, or a combination? Who must lead the reignition of the African Renaissance? Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Anthony. Another round of applause for him. So now, for the interest of time, we still have 3 students from the University of Dar es Salaam who are also prepared to engage in this particular topic. I will give them 1 minute and they can speak from where they are. So I will start with Ms. Olivia Pesha, who is a MA student on political science from the University of Dar es Salaam. Just get the mic there and you can speak from there, please, for 1 minute. And then we'll open up to the rest, maybe 4 or 5 questions. Karibu.
Asante. Good evening, everyone. I have a question. In reigniting the African Renaissance, one of the aspirations that is to be considered is youth empowerment, because we are considered as the means of production, but also the manpower into bringing about the Renaissance as well as the revival of the Africa that we want. The question comes is, we have seen so far there are a number of youth empowerment programs, but still youth are seen to lag behind in trying to advocate for change, where they sometimes face repressions and other obstacles of such. So what could be done so as to improve the youth empowerment into the African Renaissance and improve the youth into trying to advocate for the African renewal in general?
Olivia, thank you very much. You have done a wonderful job just posing a question, and you set also the environment for His Excellency President Mbeki to also reflect on that. Now I move to Ms. Karen Dika, who is a BA student on actuarial sciences, also from the University of Dar es Salaam. Let's provide the microphone for her also.
Good evening, everyone. All protocols observed. I stand before you as a voice of the youth, representing 60% of our population in Africa. My major concern regarding youth is specifically on the aspect of unemployment. A lot of youth in our country are facing this huge problem, and it seems as though it is a cry for help which is yet to be fully answered. Now, my question is not only targeted to His Excellency, President Thabo Mbeki, it is targeted to all stakeholders here. How are we making sure that we create solutions that are multifaceted, solutions that are integrated for each community to solve and reduce the problem of unemployment, and even create other solutions such as entrepreneurship within the digital, within the machine learning, and the revolutionary space? How are we doing that as stakeholders? Thank you.
Thank you. Your question was very clear. Applaud for her as well. And the third one in the program is Mr. Sabato Nyamsenda, who is a PhD student on political sciences from the University of Dar es Salaam. on my left. After Sabato, I'll open up. I would like to at least ask the participants to be very brief, introduction, and then straight to either the question or the comment. Sabato, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. I was asked to prepare a 10 minutes presentation, and I'm going to condense it into 1 minute. If I exceed, please bear with me.
Sure.
And I'm not going to ask you questions because young people also have solutions. We can think you constitute 80% of the African population. I am always very envious of the students at UNISA because President Mbeki, when he goes there, he sits down and listens to them. And then later he engages them. So without listening to young people, how is he going to make an intervention? So please give us time, and I hope the ambassadors, professors, why don't you keep quiet and listen to young people? For once, this event is ours. That's the whole meaning of a town hall. A town hall is an engagement. And President Mbeki is the second leader in doing that after Mwalimu Nyerere in the 60s and 70s. So let's not embarrass ourselves before our visitors. And I'm going to condense, as I said, my presentation in the interest of time. In 2 or 3 minutes, please bear with me, because I burned the midnight candle to prepare it. So I will take from where Dr. Andros ended, and mine will go to the solution. And I want to propose 2 minimum reforms. The first one is the radical restructuring of the economy to put people's needs at the center. Because the so-called free market and its agency, the private sector, cannot play that role because it's geared towards profit. Our production system, both industrial and agricultural, will have to be reorganized to produce goods that fulfill the needs of our people. These goods will have to be treated as wage goods to be made available to all and sundry, some for free and some at affordable rates. The second one is the radical restructuring of the state to subordinate it to popular power. We might have to think the forms of democratic participation beyond multi-party politics and elections. Now, I don't see these 2 minimum reforms being fulfilled by the present setup of African nation states. Experience has shown us that the African states are too weak to withstand imperialist assaults. Nor do I see them being fulfilled by the African ruling classes, whose survival depends on the maintenance of the status quo. Actually, our rulers keep setting agendas to be fulfilled in the distant future, when they will all be dead, and therefore they will not be held accountable. Things like Vision Agenda 2063. They are very busy telling young people that we are the future of the continent and all that, but we are the present. And if we are the present, then we need agenda now. And that's what Kwame Nkrumah told us, agenda now. Now I'm therefore, this is the last part of my presentation. I'm therefore speaking of liberatory Pan-Africanism. This means decentering Pan-Africanism from the state and taking it back to the streets where it belonged. From 1900 to 1945 of the Manchester Conference, Pan-Africanism was a grassroots movement that was led by the likes of Garvey, Du Bois, and others in the diaspora. From 1945 to 1960, when it came to the continent, it unified liberation movements. That's why South Africa, ANC, was in Tanzania, out of Pan-Africanism, because we were the ones, our movements united to liberate Africa from colonialism. Now the trouble began when these movements became ruling parties after independence. And they snatched Pan-Africanism away from the masses, and they turned it into a state project to be debated using protocol among heads of states. And therefore, I am proposing that it's time to take it back where it belonged, to the masses. And that will entail building a unified Pan-Africanist grassroots movement that links the streets and villages of Africa from Cape to Cairo, Morocco to Madagascar, with the working people who are the major victims of the policies that we are talking about at the center. That is the end of my presentation, and I'll be glad to engage more.
Thank you. Let's clap for Sabato. Thank you very much. I believe the audience and President Mbeki have heard you, and he will have a moment to reflect on your recommendations as well. So I open up. I'm looking for hands. Please be brief. Introduce yourself and go straight to the point. I apologize in advance if I'll have to interrupt you, but please let's have an opportunity for a number of others. The hand is there, and then I see the hand there. Upstairs? Okay,
Yes.
we start with these two first.
I'll be very brief, but I would like to first congratulate former President of South Africa, Thabo Mbeki, for picking the baton from the like of...
Introduce yourself, please.
My name is Gerson Daniel Janga, a master student of Political Science, University of Dar es Salaam. So I would like to congratulate President Mbeki for picking the baton from the like of Cheikh Anta Diop, Kwame Nkrumah and Nyerere for bringing back Africa to its rightful position. I had a question based on the lecture he gave to more than 400 people, and I'll quote the question. He gave it in Johannesburg, where there were different politicians, business people, and academicians. He asked, who we are and where are we going in the global community? And in formulating practical strategies and solutions for future action that would benefit the African masses. If you narrow it down, he was asking
wind
for,
up.
yes, I'm winding up, for African solution for African problems. I would like to ask him, since that time, nearly 30 years, has he managed to get answer? Correct, completely, partly, or he has not gotten an answer at all?
Thank you very much. The white gentleman in the middle, and then we will take a question upstairs from a lady, if there is one. I see you there.
My question is for Mr. President Thabo Mbeki.
Your name, please? And
my name is Halil Ibrahim Arpa, and I'm a guest professor from Turkey. I greet you all with my all sincerity. It's a great opportunity to have this talk today because I didn't expect this. I just came here on Sunday. My question is related to South Africa, and I'm wondering, is there any way we misunderstand decolonization? If decolonization is meaning nationalization, as in some political and academic movements, if we name it as Azania, for instance, could be there any way for African Renaissance and to reignite it when it's limited to nations, native, or borders, which are all the words of colonial epistemology? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Upstairs, give the hand to the lady. And there's another gentleman on this side. Okay, I'll come back to you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Waridi Jonas from BA in Education. I would like to ask, quoting from Robert Kiyosaki, the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I would want to ask, he said that financial education is the way to revamp our economy. So I would like to ask how African countries are making strategies in order to provide financial education, especially for those who are not studying economics and business classes.
Thank you. So as I go to the last two questions, let me request my fellow organizers to prepare the stage for President Mbeki to come to this stage so that he will reflect. So there's a lady there downstairs. Be brief, introduce yourself.
Good evening. My name is Leto John Makajubili. I'm taking Bachelor of Science in Applied Zoology. Pleasure observed. Let me continue from Brother Simon Shire when he said about until when for economic development of Africa. So I think for economic development of Africa, it's when we balance for foreign investments and the African economic. So my question is, how are we going to balance the foreign investment and our African economic development?
Yes. The brother there. Okay. The last one maybe on that side.
Thank you for this opportunity chance. Good evening. I go by the name Sabi Isaac, second year student from University of Dar es Salaam. I'm pursuing Bachelor of Art in Anthropology. Let me go direct to my questions. I have only 2 questions. Let me go direct. My first question is that this is the African education system preparing young people for realities of the modern job market and how you can help African youth to accomplish their goals and to solve the unemployment consequence. My second question is that how is African addressing the challenge posed either internal or external challenge like economic consequence, political instability, disease, unemployment, and climatic change? Thank you for this opportunity chance.
Okay, the very last one. The very last one.
Thank you so much. Good evening. My name is Logic, a student of political science here at the University of Dar es Salaam. First of all, I wanted just to remind ourselves that as we continue with this dialogue, we are standing in between centuries of atrocities, humiliation, and undermination of Africa. And in the future, we have 2 options: continue to debate forever or taking action. And I suggest that we take action. And so, this reminder is going to answer the question of Mr. Shayo. All the question he posed until when Africa will be free is just answered in the single term. And I can see we are beating around the bush, and some words sound like a taboo to mention. That capitalism that was embraced after independence failed to prove its promise, and so socialism is the only answer, and the only answer Africa can realize its potential. And so,
thank you.
I want just to finish, and two seconds, to the young people, that this African Renaissance shall never be televised and will not be brought from the heaven. It's you and I to take action. This Renaissance will be built by workers in the streets. This Renaissance should be debated in school in our classes. And so by finalizing that, we as a student, we organized an event and we are launching a students organization called Africa Kwetu to continue this legacy in pursuing African unity. Thank you.
Thank you for all who had an opportunity to engage, and apologies for those who I could not reach out. I'm sorry. Now I hand over the stage to my colleague, Mr. Austin Makani. I'm sorry.
No, you did not.
Please respect. So I've finished the session. I hand over to Mr. Makani. Thank you very much.
Your Excellency, if it may so please you to please join me on the stage. Thank you so much for your reflection onto some of the questions that have been directed to you. Karibu Sana. As it comes, let's put our hands together for His Excellency Thabo Mbeki.
So we don't need that. And thanks a lot, Chancellor of the University of Dar es Salaam, President Kikwete, Minister of Education and Science, Vice Chancellor, Chairperson of Council, friends and comrades. I think it was correct for one of our colleagues here to talk about the fact that we start a bit late. We were informed that because Her Excellency, President of Namibia, had come, and happily you were here to engage her, that we needed to come a little bit later. I think the delay was proper. I'm very, very glad indeed that you stayed so that we can have this short engagement. Our scene setter, Dr. Ndlozi, I was very glad when he said, I'm not here today to lecture. I've been looking for a job at the University of Dar es Salaam as a lecturer. I hope they give me a job. The idea was that we should meet here to engage one another on this topic that's on our board here about re-energizing, reigniting the African Renaissance. Not for either President Kikwete or myself to lecture. I think that was said by my comrade there, Sabato, was correct. It was very, very correct indeed that we're not here to answer questions. We're here to engage one another in answering those questions. I'm very, very glad indeed that when he said, even the youth have got answers. So it was not for the youth to pose questions, but to say, this is where we are today, this is where we need to be tomorrow. It's the kind of engagement that we were supposed to have. So you'll excuse me if I don't answer the questions as they've been put. The word Renaissance, we know all of us what it means. It means a rebirth. So when we talk about an African Renaissance, we're talking about an Africa reborn. Dr. Ndlozi, I don't know whether we all know what that means. What is this Africa that we imagine? I think our colleague who talked about socio-economic development did say there are certain things that have gone wrong which should not happen, then we would know that we are being reborn. One of the great strengths, my view, one of the great strengths of the OAU and the AU, these continental organizations, is that they actually attended to this matter. An Africa reborn, what should it look like? As a consequence of which, as a continent, we are very, very rich in terms of policy. I don't know of any major issue facing us as Africans on which there is no continental policy. The politics of our continent, issues about democracy, accountability, good governance, all of that. They are policies. When we're talking about women's empowerment, gender equality, and all of that, they are policies. Issues of youth development, youth empowerment, and so on, culture, education, science and technology, peace and security, all of these things. If I asked, if we had time, I asked the universities here, the students of the University of Dar es Salaam, and say, do they know what AU, not AU, African Continental Policy on Youth Development is? Can you please raise your hands? None. Yet there is. And I think we would find that with regard to many of these policies, which I say exist, and when Dar es Salaam University appoints me lecturer, I will give you the documents. This is part of our challenge. The policy positions exist on the continent, approved by our political leaders, many of them ratified by our parliaments. So there's a policy framework which exists for the renaissance of Africa. One of our comrades just said that the answer is socialism. It's not, that one I know is not in the AU policies. I'm not saying it's wrong, but I know it's not in the policies. There is no shortage of a general, overall, comprehensive policy framework to define the kind of new Africa we want, the Africa reborn. There's a problem. The problem is that the Africans don't know of that. How do we solve it? I don't have an answer to that question. But it's a critical matter that we need to solve. If we say the future of our continent, as Dr. Ndlozi was saying, this issue of self-reliance, the future of our continent is defined by ourselves. He said it's not going to be defined by the Chinese or the Indians or the Americans or the Russians, but ourselves, correct. But I'm saying here is African institutions which say, with regard to that question, this is what our future should be politically, economically, peace and security, this and that and that and the other. And yet as Africans, we don't know that. That's a serious problem. President Kikwete, other people, his age, my age, a bit younger perhaps, will also know that at a certain point in our history on the continent, we had a number of organizations focused on this task of the transformation of our continent. Some of our presenters have put this matter about agency. What's our role? These visions that we have about our continent, how do you bring them about? Earlier, there used to be on the continent a Pan-African youth movement made up of youth organizations who would meet and discuss and say, what do we do about this continent of ours? Young people. Where is it now? It's disappeared. There was an African Students' Union. And the students' unions of various countries all across the continent would meet and ask this question and answer it. What do we about our continent, including its education and all of that? That disappeared. There was an organization called the All African Trade Union Unity, which brought together all of the African trade unions, organized political organization formation of the organized workers on the continent about the future of our continent. Disappeared. And there was PAO, Pan-African Women's Organization. The power still exists. I saw its president not long ago. She participated in the inauguration of the president of Namibia, was here earlier today. We didn't have time to discuss power. It exists, but you don't feel its weight. The voice of the African women, that's the body which brought together all of these African women's organizations, would say, as the women of Africa, this is where we want Africa to go. I'm saying it exists, but I don't feel its weight. It's an issue of agency. Our colleagues ask about how do you solve a question about youth employment, youth empowerment, and all of that. I'm saying that the youth need to be party to the answering of that question. But they don't have the organizations on the continent which give them the necessary power as a youth to act together, to say, we as the youth of Africa, this is what we're saying. Whether it's employment or whatever. One of the organs of the African Union is an ECOSOC, which brings the cultural, social, and organizations. And that is the task of it. Well, composition of it is to bring in the ordinary African people into that process, represented by various organizations, economic, cultural, political, whatever. Would serve side by side with the governmental institutions of the African Union. But if I ask any one of you here to say, has it ever come to Tanzania, that ECOSOC? We are an official body of the African Union. We are not government, we are not ministers. But we're trade unionists, we're youth organizers, we're women organizers, and so on. But we're an official structure. Yeah. I'm sure it's never come here. I don't know if other African countries ever come to. Because essentially it exists on paper. What's the problem? I'm going to tell you one or two secrets. But since we're all here agreed on secrecy rules, please don't tell anybody else. There were presidential elections in Cote d'Ivoire 4 years ago. The opposition parties got together and they contacted me to say, as you know, there are presidential elections in Cote d'Ivoire later in the year, but there are certain things that are not right. And so we'd like that the presidential election should be postponed so that we, the Ivorians, can sort out the things that are not right. And one of the things that they said was not right was the constitution, the composition of the electoral commission. The matter had been taken up to the African people, the Court on Human and People's Rights, which had looked at the question about the composition of the Electoral Commission of Cote d'Ivoire and took a decision that that commission needed to be reconstituted. because it was not in a fit state to conduct any election. That's a judgment of the African court, and said this is what it must be changed and these things must be addressed and therefore it must be reconstituted. The government of Cote d'Ivoire ignored that decision. So the opposition, when they write to me, they say, part of what we want time for is for us as Ivorians to discuss a matter like that, to get the commission properly constituted to run the next elections and other matters. Can you please talk to the African Union, to ECOWAS, and United Nations to help us to address this particular matter? Yeah. So, which I did. So I communicated this message to all of these bodies. To cut that very long story short, nothing happened. I then write to the AU Commission. And I say to the AU Commission, please don't observe those elections. Because held under the conditions that the opposition was talking about, it was obvious that you could never say that those elections would be free and fair. And therefore I say to the AU Commission, don't observe them, because if you do, you legalize them. So, of course, they ignored me. They observed the elections. But what was interesting is that the commission then responded in writing to say to me, but President, you of all people know very well that the things that you are asking us to do and not to do, we can't act on, because the rules and regulations and policies and whatever of the AU don't allow us, the Commission, that kind of space. So in a sense, you're saying, but we're surprised that you of all people should raise these matters with us. I'm about to finish that story. So I responded to the Commission. I was very glad that they had written in response to say, thanks for your letter, but you are wrong for the following reasons. So I wrote back to them. And my response was 10 pages. I can see it's rumbling here. The letter was too long. People, that's what they think. It was 10 pages. And the reason it was 10 pages is because I was answering the commission. I was answering their letter, pointing them to specific decisions of the African Union, which empower them to do the things that I was saying they must do. And they didn't know. They were not aware of these policy positions. For instance, the Charter on Democracy, President Kikwete would know this. Charter on Democracy, Elections, Governance, and so on. It specifically says, where the Commission deems that the conditions for the holding of elections have not been proper, the Commission must not observe those elections. It's in the Charter. But the Commission didn't know that. That's why they went and observed those elections. The point I'm trying to make, so that's a secret between us. Then at a certain point, President Kikwete and the others, by this time I'm retired, so I'm not guilty. They take a good decision to restructure the African Union so that it becomes an effective instrument in terms of achieving all of these policy positions on which the Union has agreed. So the restructuring process takes place. And part of what is done, what drives the restructuring process is let's reduce the size of the commission. Commission is 10 people, AU commission, including the chair. Let's trim it a bit, make it more efficient, cost-effective, and all of that. And part of what that reform did was to merge two commissions. The Commission on Political Affairs and the Commission on Peace and Security. The current situation now is that you have a commission of the African Union on politics, peace and security, or political affairs, peace and security. It was a very bad decision. It might be cost effective in the sense that now you have only one commissioner instead of two. But the problem with it is that you are then killing what needs to be your lead commission, the Commission on Political Affairs. Simply because of the volume of work with regard to peace and security. The matter that were raised in our agenda here about peace and security, Pan-Africanism and all that, you know, it's a top-heavy matter on our continent. Conflict in the Sahel, conflict in Sudan, in the two Sudans, in the Horn of Africa, and in the Great Lakes, and so on. Naturally, the commissioner responsible for peace and security must attend to all of these things. You add the burden of the politics, they will say, no, I'll come to that tomorrow. And yet, the Commission on Political Affairs is the lead commission in terms of attending to the strategic challenges on the continent. If you say, which AU says, the issue of African unity is important. Dr. Ndlozi was saying we must act together. The enemies come for any one of us, member states of the African community, from outside. He was saying we must get together and unite and say we stand together as Africans. Who is the leader to produce that outcome? It's the Political Affairs Commission. It's not peace and security or commerce or whatever else. It's that commission which leads in terms of the building of this new South Africa, the new Africa, defined in terms of, it's a Political Affairs Commission. But in the restructuring, it got killed. Because in the new Commission on Political Affairs, Peace and Security, it gets overwhelmed by peace and security. Now what I'm trying to do is I'm pointing to these two examples, colleagues, is to say, in terms of looking at this renaissance and what to do about it, if you look at the institutions of the African Union, this continental organization which has given us a whole range of policy positions in terms of what is to be done. Who does it? This agency question that's been raised. I'm saying we have an AU commission, which certainly for many years has not been doing what it should do. As a consequence of which, heads of state and government, they meet and they take very major policy positions. What happens after that? Nothing. Even in terms of a simple process of reporting. When I was president of the Republic of South Africa, as confessed, South Africans here might correct me, I don't remember a single instance when President Mbeki comes back from an AU summit and reports to the nation what the summit decided. I don't think we ever did it. So me and my delegation, we know what was decided. The country doesn't know. I'm saying that in looking at this question about reigniting the Renaissance, the question of agency becomes important. And the point that has been made is very correct. I think the phrase that was used was, we must take this notion of Pan-Africanism and so on back to the streets. That it got captured by the politicians and the bureaucrats. No, we must take it back to the people. That's correct. But I'm saying, if we say back to the people, what do we do about this history? We had African people's organizations that died. Who's going to resurrect them? I'm saying you've got the institutions of the African Union which have got an obligation to help implement these policies which have been agreed upon. But you have an AU Commission which does not even know what its own duties and rights and obligations are, until you have to write them a 10-page letter just to point to page. Look at page 1, look at page 15, look at page 17 and a half. What do we do about all of that? The last institution I should mention are the political parties on our continent. Because I think it's the first responsibility to reignite this renaissance and the political parties. If I look at the South African case, I'm talking about the ANC now, that's my organization. Over the years, the ANC has walked away from the African agenda. I mean, sit there, you can see it, that the engagement of the ANC with the African challenges over the years has weakened and weakened and weakened. People are preoccupied with what to do with South Africa and so on, which is sure you've got to be preoccupied with that. But you can't do it at the expense of the rest of the continent. Well, that's what's happening. I see Ambassador Amimpungwe here in front of me. I'm finished with that story, President Kikwete. Some years back, I was invited by the youth of CCM, to come here. And they had a retreat in Zanzibar. So they said they wanted me to come and join them in that retreat. So I came and we went. So these young people, they say, now President, the late Ben Mkapa, may his soul rest in peace, was also there. So they said, now President, you see, that front row, those are veterans of our struggle for the independence of Tanganyika and so on. Sitting in that front row. The rest is the youth. And now, what's happened, President, they say? If you look at us, I'm a lecturer at the University of Dar es Salaam. I'm an accountant, that one is a lawyer, this and that and the other. We've got skills which are globally marketable. I'm Tanzanian, but I can get a job as an accountant anyway. You see these old people here, the veterans. You give them a mobile phone. They don't even know how to use it. They can't teach us any of those things. We can teach them. But here is the reason we asked you to come. These veterans here, many of them were teachers. But they were ready to sacrifice their position so that our country should be liberated. It's very principled people. So they don't have the skills I have to operate a cellular phone. I have those skills, but I don't have the value system which they have. And the problem is that we are going to develop from this as a youth to become the national leaders of Tanzania. With all the skills that we have, but without the values. Can you please help us to get these two things to emerge, the skills and the values? One of them, a young lady, says, you know, President, I contested for a position in the Youth League. And I was defeated. But nevertheless, so as an official, secretary, or whatever, nevertheless, I was elected onto the executive. So we discussed the matter of why she got defeated. And she says, it's because my competitor used money. Bought votes. And they've got more votes than I did. So I say that worries me. That the youth of CCM are already using money to buy votes to get elected. And she said, President, the matter does not end there. This young comrade of mine, who had the money and bought the votes, is a drug dealer. He got the money from selling drugs. I'm ending with that story because I'm saying this reigniting of the African Renaissance, the first responsibility lies with our political parties on the continent, inspired by the spirit of Pan-Africanism and the sense of sacrifice which those veterans were sitting, those one were meeting in Zanzibar. By that spirit of self-sacrifice being loyalty to principle and loyalty to this Pan-African perspective. We're talking about Mwalimu Julius Nyerere here. We need more Nyereres today. Our political parties need more Nyereres. The tragedy is that President Kikwete, I'm sure you and I, when we sit in the corner and we go through each one of these political parties on the continent, we would come to the same conclusions, that things are not right. In the end, what does that mean? It means that the university, the students, and I don't know, I'm not going about it, the lecturers and professors, the students. The students of the University of Dar es Salaam need to sit together and say, we want to be part of the process of reigniting this renaissance. We want to take our place, respond to our own responsibility to define the future of the continent, and answer the question themselves, well, what do we do as university students of this university? What do we do to achieve that objective? It's a task. I'm giving this as a task. the Chancellor of the University has agreed with me that I can give you that task. This university, it's an old home to me. I've been here many times, and the reason for that is because this particular university was the lead university in helping the continent to answer the question from 1960 when continent gets independent. This university was very central to answering the question for independent Africa. What do you do with your independence? Now you've got it. You fought for it. Very well done. But what do you do with it? This academic institution here was very, very central to answering the question, what does liberated Africa do with its liberation? I think this university has got that task again, to say, what do we do? What do we do as this university to reignite the renaissance of Africa, to which people like Mwalimu Nyerere devoted their lives? And the CEO of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation has said to me that what I must say to you, the students, that please contact the foundation, his foundation, Thabo Mbeki Foundation, because they are starting the process of the reactivation of the African youth, including the students, to organize themselves on the continent and to focus on this task. So he says, please, he said, I must say that please contact the foundation so that we can work together. Agency. Who are the people who are going to bring about these changes about which we agreed? It's us. But in order to do that, we must be organized. Thanks a lot. Thanks for coming, and thanks for listening.
Distinguished delegates, let's give His Excellency Thabo Mbeki another big round of applause. Thank you very much. I've requested Your Excellency to remain back on the stage for two things. One, I will now invite His Excellency Dr. Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete to present a token of appreciation to you. Number two, we shall have a vote of thanks, and while at that, group photos. With your permission, now as President Dr. Jakaya Kikwete is coming, let's give him a warm round of applause onto the stage.
That was something. This is my senior brother, the Thabo Mbeki I have known for many, many years. Well, he's a young adult now, but he's still very dynamic. You can see clarity of thought, eloquence in speech. That is, Your Excellency, Dr. Thabo Mbeki, former President of the Republic of South Africa, and our esteemed guest, Minister of Education, Science and Technology, Professor Adolf Mkenda, Chairperson of the University Council, Ambassador Mwanaidi Majal, Vice Chancellor, Professor William Anangise, Acting High Commissioner of the South African Embassy, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. let me again begin by thanking, on behalf of the University of Dar es Salaam and on my own behalf, our deepest appreciation and warmest welcome to our esteemed guest, His Excellency Dr. Thabo Mbeki, former President of the Republic of South Africa, and one of the most revered Pan-African thinkers and statesmen of our time. Your Excellency, we are most grateful for you to consider the University of Dar es Salaam to host this year's Thabo Mbeki lecture. It's an honor for which we highly appreciate. We commend your vision and tireless efforts to reposition Africa to its rightful place in global affairs, where it is not a passive observer, but an active and respected participant in shaping international relations and global power dynamics. The theme of this year's lecture, the state of the continent, reigniting the African Renaissance, could not be more timely or more urgent. You have set the tone for serious reflection and have reignited a long-burning flame, the desire for African transformation driven by African thought, African agency, African leadership, and the African people. The winds of change are gathering storm across the continent, but what Africa needs now is not cosmetic reforms, not rhetoric, but profound structural and ideological transformation that redefines governance, economic models, and intellectual production on African terms. The demand for change is growing, and it is a demand that we, as leaders, intellectuals, and institutions, must respond to with clarity and courage. Your Excellency, we are especially inspired by your deliberate inclusion of young people and emerging intellectuals on this podium. That gesture speaks volumes about your continued belief in the power and potential of Africa's youth. They are indeed the lifeblood of our continent's future. I join you in calling for increased intra-African youth engagement, facilitated by homegrown Pan-African programs that foster dialogue, unity, and purpose across the borders. President, when you spoke about the role of this university, I remember when I was here, I was a student here, 72 to 75. That was quite a long time by any standards. But you can imagine at that time, Professor Shivji was a very young man, radical, class struggles in Africa, writing articles. And at that time, President, we had a team of professors and lecturers from across the globe, but all of them with that revolutionary mind. Walter Rodney was here. And he wrote his book, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, when he was here. We used to have ideological classes every Sunday. And those of us who were attending those classes used to call ourselves Sunday metaphysicists. We used to invite people to come and talk. And at that time, the University of Dar es Salaam was red, dynamic, and we were the bastion of thinking about the African Revolution. One incident I would remember when I was student leader here was the day when Gasha Butelezi came. As you see these guys here, he made a brilliant speech. Everybody was quiet, very attentive. And then when it came question and answer session, I think it was 1973, the first question was, you gave us a very brilliant speech on your contribution to the struggle against apartheid in South Africa. But can you answer one simple question? Why are you still not in prison? Nelson Mandela is in prison. Govan Mbeki, your dad, was in prison. That locally, Walter Sisulu and even. But why? And the other question that was asked, and the Boers have allowed you to travel and come to all the places but Tanzania. What the Boers at that time used to call Tanzania the bastion of terrorism in Africa. Then he says, I came here, it is their own mistake. Okay, fine. The other question which irritated him was, what is your position on the armed struggle? Let's go so angry. He says, where are the guns? Then, you know, in those days when we had problems with anybody we don't want here, would simply start, go home, go home, go home, go home. Then students started chanting, go home, go home, go home. He left the stage, climbed down. He almost forgot his wife here. In those days, we used to be quite active. The other incident I will tell you was when Sir Alec Douglas Hume came. He was the Foreign Secretary of the United Kingdom. And at that time, the British were playing games with the question of the independence of Zimbabwe. So some people told us that he's coming. I was a student leader. What we did was to organize buses. We loaded students onto the buses to the airport with our placards, billboards, picketing. At that time, His Excellency John Malechela was Foreign Minister. So we went there with our buses, and the police said, no, you cannot be allowed to go to inside the airport. Then I was asked to go and talk to the Foreign Minister. And at that time, Patrick Koro, he's now late, the husband of our late professor, Martha, who died also recently, was there. They asked me, what do you want here? I said, no, we just came here to express our displeasure with what the British are doing. Why hasn't every other youth come? I said, sir, I can't answer on their behalf. I can only speak on behalf of the students of the University of Dar es Salaam. Then he said, okay, fine. Can you sign an indemnity that if anything happens to the foreign secretary, he'll be accountable. I said, okay, fine. Just give me the book to sign. Then Foreign Minister Marechera says, you young men, you look very arrogant. It's not arrogant. So then I signed, committing myself that if anything happens to the British Foreign Secretary, I'll be accountable. Well, we were allowed to go in because I had signed. They told us to stay at certain position. But then when we realized the British Super VC-10 was going to other direction, we said, let's go there. So as the plane was stopping, we also stood there. Hey, home, go home, home, go home, home, go home. Our student leader at that time was Martin Shinganya. And we said, don't worry, you just start reading our message. So we're reading the message. The British gentleman came down the stairs. So at some point I got worried because these young people now were trying to throw papers at him. But fortunately, he left unharmed. So I can recite so many stories of how committed we were to the struggle that was ongoing. But it was a combination of many things. The type of professors we had and the time we had. Because at the time, this was the time when even the national mood, the national aspirations were to fight for the independence of this country. Well, I'm the chancellor. We have to reinvent ourselves as a university. What is it that is going to be our agenda? What is it that we are going to pursue? I think that's a message. You left it with us, leave it with us, we sit down with everyone. And as long as Professor Shivji is now a Professor Emeritus, they're still there nurturing the people. Penina is still there. No. So that's the message. But what is important to me, President, is you are talking about African Renaissance. President Mbeki is the brain behind the whole concept of the African Renaissance. He presented this idea at the OAU summit in Algiers. And it was picked from there. A committee was set up with him, Chairperson Obasanjo, Abdullahi Wade, and the others. Worked on it. It came to be translated itself into NEPAD, New African Partnership for African Development. So for him to talk about reigniting, he is the right person to talk about it. And you and me are retired, but not very much tired. You expressed your displeasure with the reforms. They happened after I left. So I'm not part of that reforms. There was a time when I think President Kagame consulted us to give our opinion. Some of us gave a different opinion because this was chaired by President Kagame when they looked at it. So we had some ideas, but we thought they had already made up their mind. And when you are out of office, what you are doing is just giving advice. And when our advice was not heeded to, sure, you are one of them, well, what else do we do? It is those who were in office then, but I hope at some point they will appreciate. I agree with you entirely. Our organization is essentially political, So the Directorate of Political Affairs is the key directorate. But Africa has a huge problem of insecurity. You end one crisis, another one erupts. It's just like the crisis in Sudan. It just came from nowhere. Two generals fighting virtually for nothing, but they have destroyed the country. Khartoum is not the Khartoum that used to be. They're crazy guys, they're just bombing the place. So there is still a lot of security problems, security challenges, but I agree with you, President, there is need, and it is important, as you said. Our universities also should take interest about what is going on the continent and what is it that they can advise. So we feel glad that you chose our university, but you are not surprised. You are one of our alumni here, yes, and you are one of the people that this university offered a PhD, honorary PhD to you. So we're glad that you are giving back to your university, as some of us are also doing, giving back to the university that gave us the education that we're having now. Well, in that spirit and further expression of our esteem, it is now my privilege to present to you the academic shower. What is it now? Mbona mnakaa mbali? Jamani, hata hawajulikani walipo. Okay. Yeah, we're going to present to you the academic shower, a humble but heartfelt token of our appreciation for your outstanding contribution to the university, the academia, to Africa, and to humanity at large. May it remind you always our respect, our gratitude, and our abiding bond. Excellency, thank you very much. Let me now present it. Where do we do? Where? Here.
A bigger round of applause. Can we have the remaining two chairs? They're supposed to have 7 chairs on the stage. Can we please be seated as I request may I request onto the stage Honorable Minister Professor Adolf Mkenda. May I request onto the stage the Vice Chancellor. May I request onto the stage Thabo Mbeki Foundation. Please join us onto the stage. May I request to the stage Charge d'Affaires. Kindly come to the stage. And Ambassador Mwanaidi Maja, please join us onto the stage. May I request the following to line up for the next photo. You will come. Balozi Karibu. May I request the following to be on the line for the next session, which will comprise collaborators and partners: UNISA representative, Uongozi Institute, Nyerere Foundation, Uncle Gold Ashanti, and University of Dar es Salaam. You will kindly come and line up at the back of the high table. Kindly join us. UNISA, Uongozi Institute, Singo, Karibu. You will come through where I'm standing and exit through the left-hand side. Mwalimu Nyerere Foundation, Anglo Gold Ashanti, and UDSM. May I request those who gave their presentations, our presenters this evening, our presenters all who gave presentation, to please join us onto the stage after this photo. You will come through where I am and exit through the left-hand side. May I request to exit through your left-hand side. Thank you very much. Can I bring another set? So the next set will include Ambassador Azizi Lima, Ms. Olivia Pesha, Mr. Simon Shayo, Ms. Karine Dika, Professor Anthony, University of South Africa, Mr. Sabatho Nyamsenda, and Hazron Makundi. Please join me onto the stage for the last but one picture. And the final picture, which will be of students representing the rest of all of us: Hassan Faraja, Moses Kazimoto, Raicho, Mwaka Jubili, Sabi Isaac, Anna Joel, Jess Kampanda, Kevin James Kimola, Donatilla Frederick, Maria Felix, and Amos Mshingi. Please join us onto the stage. The students representative that I've just called, please come quickly onto the stage for the final photo session. And after that, we will all be upstanding to allow our guests So this will not be the last photo, but the last photo will comprise of Professor Shivji, Balozi Amimpungwe, the professors that are present in the room. Professor Nema, please join us onto the stage for the final photo. Professor Shivji, we exit through the left-hand side, kindly. Thank you so much. Any professor present in the room, please join us onto the final photo. Penina, please join us on the stage. Penina, kindly join us onto the stage. As they have been mandated to ensure that we take Africa back to Africa, this is the privilege for the professors present, both old and new. We also have professors from UNISA, professors from South Africa as well. Please join us. They have gotten onto the stage. Professor Shivji. Ladies and gentlemen, some of us are walking onto the dreams that they had. Can we give them a big round of applause? Please continue to nurture us. Please continue to guide us as we take Africa back to Africa. Thank you very much, professors. I will now request that we exit through the left-hand side. Yes, kindly. I will now request that we all kindly rise so we can allow the members of the high table to take their leave. Asante sana, we appreciate, we truly thank you, Excellencies. Thabo Mbeki, Excellency Jakaya Kikwete, Mheshimiwa Waziri, Mheshimiwa Mabalozi, the VC, we thank you so much. Can we all please rise? Let's once again clap our hands for Excellency Thabo Mbeki. Asante, asante sana. DJ, naomba wimbo mzuri sana tuweze kusindikiza viongozi wetu.
Maputo, Maputo, home of the brave, our nation will soon be as one.
As they come down the stage, let's continue to clap our hands in appreciation of their dedication and commitment to reigniting the African Renaissance, the state of the continent. We've come to the very end. Let's kindly clear the pathway so we can allow them to proceed. Let's clear the pathway. Asante, asante.